George R.R. Martin has written a Tyrion chapter that he considers some of his best work, but we'll never get to see it. Why, and what is in it? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. If you like theories, background, history and lore about A Song of Ice and Fire, The Lord of the Rings and The Witcher, this is the place for you. Welcome. Just before Christmas 2025, George R.R. Martin gave a wide-ranging interview to James Hibberd of Hollywood Reporter. It's a great interview, and in it he says, almost in passing, that I wrote a Tyrion chapter I just loved. Then I looked at it and said, I can't do this. It will change the whole book. I'll make this into a series of dreams. No, that doesn't work either. This wasn't new news to those of us who pay a lot of attention to George R.R. Martin's interviews. He had mentioned that chapter before, and used it as an example of one of the opportunities and casualties of his famous Gardner writing style. In case you're unaware of that, George R.R. Martin considers himself a Gardner writer as opposed to an architect writer. He doesn't plan out books in advance, then write to that plan. Instead, he follows his muse as he writes. It means that he quite often writes whole chapters and allows his story to head off in random directions before deciding to abandon that and try a different route. He has written and abandoned plenty of chapters in A Song of Ice and Fire over the years. But there's clearly something about this Tyrion chapter that is different. It haunts him somehow. He first talked about it back in 2007, saying this, "Someday I will die, and I hope you're right and it's 30 years from now. When that happens, maybe my heirs will decide to publish a book of fragments and deleted chapters, and you'll all get to read about Tyrion's meeting with the Shrouded Lord. It's a swell, spooky, evocative chapter. But you won't read it in dance. It took me down a road I decided I did not want to travel, so I went back and ripped it out." Fair enough. So it's a chapter that he liked, but it took him down a path he didn't want to go down. One of many, surely. But unlike those others, he keeps on raising it in interviews. This is what he said 4 years later. "There's this Tyrion chapter that drove me crazy all through the decade, it seemed, that I worked on A Dance with Dragons. I kept putting it in and taking it out and putting it in, then taking it out. And then I put it in as a dream sequence, and I took it out. Then I made it into a series of recurring dreams, each one going slightly further. So I put it in 7 chapters, and then I took it out of those 7 chapters. It's one of those chapters that I think is, by itself, is a terrific chapter. I liked the way it came together. It's vivid, it's kind of spooky. It's got some really great visual imagery in it, and it leads me absolutely down a dead end." When we get to 2014, he's still thinking about that chapter. "There's at least one deleted chapter from Book 5 which left me in the wrong place, which I have been tempted to publish as a sort of short story." By the time we get to 2018, and he'd been talking about it for more than a decade, fans started asking him about it, and he said this, "I will need to do something with that chapter one of these days, but just what, I don't know." I'll spare you even more quotes, but suffice it to say that he has mentioned it at length at least 3 more times since. So what is going on? What could possibly be in that chapter that was so good, but to George R.R. Martin's mind, took the story in the complete wrong direction? Well, let's start with setting the scene for what's happened to Tyrion in A Dance with Dragons. He starts off, like he does on the show, in Illyrio's manse in Pentos. He is his usual Tyrion self, noticing things and making a few deductions about what is going on there, but his head is all over the place. He had been framed for the murder of his nephew by his sister, freed by his brother, but then found out that his brother was involved in the horrors that happened to Tyrion's first wife. Then he discovered his lover naked in his father's bed and killed his father. Quite the family drama. Everything he had relied on, his name, his money, his privilege, the trust he had in Jaime, has gone. His head is understandably all over the place. He drinks a lot, even for him, and even picks some poisonous mushrooms just in case he wants to eat them later. As I said, not in a good mental place. But by the end of that first chapter, Illyrio tells him this: "There is no peace in Westeros, no justice, no faith, and soon enough, no food. When men are starving and sick of fear, they look for a saviour. They may look," says Tyrion, "but if all they find is Stannis, not Stannis, nor Myrcella, The yellow smile widened. Another, stronger than Tommen, gentler than Stannis, with a better claim than the girl Marcella. A saviour come from across the sea to bind up the wounds of bleeding Westeros. Fine words. Tyrion was unimpressed. Words are wind. Who is this bloody saviour? A dragon. The cheesemonger saw the look on his face at that and laughed. A dragon with 3 heads. Tyrion is intrigued. He is well read and knows, as we know, that this is a reference to the Targaryens and Aegon who invaded Westeros. And Tyrion is obsessed with dragons. It's a topic for another video, but he has read every book he can lay his hands on about dragons, stared into flames for hours on end thinking of dragons, and felt at home among the dragon skulls beneath the Red Keep. Yes, the prospect of seeing real-life dragons, thought long gone, intrigues him. The next few chapters are him on the journey south towards Volantis, where they are expecting to meet Daenerys. First, he's with Illyrio, then on the Shy Maid with that wonderfully motley collection of people. I'll admit that I hugely enjoy his time working through who his fellow travellers truly are. It is Tyrion regaining his mojo. His 5th chapter in A Dance with Dragons describes the Shy Maid heading through the Sorrows. It's a spooky place, a fog-shrouded, ruined city on the river, populated by stone men, those in the latter stages of greyscale affliction. The Sorrows has a deep history that we will touch on in a moment. This is where the missing chapter takes place. What we ended up with without that missing chapter is still pretty notable. There's a weird river currents or magical or time travel event that I did a whole other video on. The stone men attack, Tyrion steps in to defend young Griff, ends up in the water and is pulled clear by Jon Connington, who contracts grayscale himself, though tells no one. Tyrion goes unconscious and only awakens much later, further downstream. After that, Tyrion continues his journey towards Dany and those dragons, though not by a particularly straightforward path. He is kidnapped by Ser Jorah, the ship they are on is caught in a storm, then they are taken by slavers, sold to a Yunkish noble, manage to escape, join the Second Son's sellsword company, and eventually try to persuade them to switch sides. By this time, Tyrion seems reinvigorated. Not even close to being healed from all the scars of what happened with his family, but he has embraced the idea that he is now the lawful lord of Casterly Rock, and he is within touching distance of those dragons he had dreamed of for so long. He has gone from wanting to drink himself to death to actively seeking life and wanting to be on the side of Dany and the dragons. From where he started that book to where he ended it, it is a clear and strong character arc. Now let's return to the Sorrows and that missing chapter, because what we just talked about was clearly what George R. R. Martin wanted for Tyrion and his arc in that book, and by implication what was in that missing chapter took him way outside of that. But what? We do know one thing for sure, because George R. R. Martin has said so several times. Central to that missing chapter is Tyrion meeting a character called the Shrouded Lord. The Shrouded Lord is a legendary figure said to rule the mists and stone men of the Sorrows. Some say he is Prince Garin, whose curse centuries earlier had led to the festival city of Troyrain becoming the Sorrows, and of releasing grayscale on the world. Some say that is just a legend and he is a pirate captain, with the name being passed down generation to generation. Others have other theories, but the legends have him as a mysterious, sinister figure, bestowing grayscale with his cold kiss, but able to grant a boon to any who could make him laugh. We also know, in what did survive to the book, Tyrion associates the Shrouded Lord with his father Tywin, who he had killed. Take this as an example, from when he first wakes up after his time in the Sorrows. He dreamt of his Lord Father and the Shrouded Lord. He dreamt that they were one and the same, and when his father wrapped stone arms around him and bent to give him his grey kiss, he woke with his mouth dry and rusty with the taste of blood, and his heart hammering in his chest. This is perhaps not surprising. At this moment in history, Tyrion is always thinking about his father, often 3 or 4 times per chapter, and he thinks particularly about one of the last things Tywin said to him, the thing that prompted Tyrion to pull the trigger on his crossbow. Tyrion asked him where Tisha had gone, Tisha being his first love and wife who was treated horrifically by Tywin and sent away. Tywin had said that she had gone wherever whores go. Tyrion thinks about that phrase, pondering its meaning nearly 20 times in A Dance with Dragons. So we have Tyrion meeting a magical figure who gives people grayscale and grants favours to those who make him laugh. Tyrion can make people laugh, so what would he ask as a favour? As much as he is on a mission at that time to find Dany and the dragons, that's not where his mind is at. More than anything else in the world right then, he wants to know where whores go. Or, more precisely, because Tisha wasn't a whore, that was just Tywin being Tywin saying that, he wants to know where his first love Tisha is. In the context of where Tyrion's head is at, if he were granted a boon by a magical being right then, it would be that. Or perhaps something else to do with his father or his family, not Dany and dragons, which perhaps helps us understand why George R. R. Martin didn't include it. He variously describes the exact reason why he excluded it as, it introduces like 3 additional layers of complication that I didn't think I actually needed. It took the story in the wrong direction and introduced a whole new element. It took us away. It left me in the wrong place. Tyrion's journey in A Dance with Dragons is from barely wanting to live and fixating on his family and his past to actively planning for the future and within touching distance of dragons. Meeting the Shrouded Lord would have changed that completely. Perhaps Tyrion would have gained some boon connected to where his lost love was. That would have left him focusing on following that, not travelling to meet Dany. Perhaps the Shrouded Lord would have given him grayscale. That wouldn't exactly help him start to plan for his future, as George R. R. Martin wanted. Whatever it was, it would take Tyrion away from the arc George R. R. Martin wanted for him. And as Tyrion is so central to the book, when you think about it, he is the character who connects all these other characters, related to the Lannisters, yes, but also friends with Jon, married to Sansa, travelling with Team Young Griff, now presumably about to join Team Dany, and so on. The thread of his story is central to how the story as a whole plays out. The Shrouded Lord is such a mythical, magical figure, and Tyrion was at such an emotionally vulnerable point in his life that any meeting, with almost any conceivable outcome, would have sidetracked him from the arc George R. R. Martin wanted for him, whether it actually happened or just happened in dreams. So I understand why the chapter didn't make it, but like George R. R. Martin said, I hope it does see the light of day sometime. A terrific chapter that just didn't fit. If you'd like to see more A Song of Ice and Fire videos, please click on the link on the left of your screen. Or if you'd like to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.